Welcome to Daggers and Shadow Daddies.
We're your hosts, Ryan and Adriana.
Buckle up, Buttercup.
This was easily the most boring set of chapters in this entire series.
Hard disagree.
No.
It was very dialogue heavy.
It is so you. We learned about trade routes.
We kind of did.
And
They
you were-
actually didn't go far enough into it.
Well, there was way too much. They're like, maybe the trade route are like this, or like this, or like this. And then I kept replaying because I'm like, oh, wow, I just zoned out for like 10 minutes and missed most of the chapter. And I go back and it's just as boring and I zone out again.
Yeah, it was good.
No,
Okay.
it was so bad. This was rough. If I wasn't invested into their story, I would not probably finish this book. It was so boring. 6 chapters, 2.5 hours, 3 hours of audio.
It was like an hour and a half of dialogue. Heavy dialogue.
They were all like a half hour
3,
long.
But only 3 of the chapters were really dialogue heavy.
They were all boring.
I would say chapter, if you really enjoy the book, the way it's been going prior to this, these chapters are going to set you up for failure. These are not my favorite chapters because they were dialogue heavy, but it was like an exposition dump without a lot of exposition.
It wasn't even the good kind where you're like, yes, this is the information. It was a lot of repetitive talking about the King of Hybern. Is he this? Is he this? Or maybe we could do a lot of the debating. And I can get the purpose of we're all equals and valuing everyone's opinions. But hearing every single person's opinion on it was a lot.
My bigger problem with this is nobody's even asked what the King of Hybern's name is.
It's just the king.
Just the King of Hybern. How do we differentiate him from the previous one or the next one? Just the King of Hybern.
That's a good point. All the talk about him, and it's nothing about really they talked about the people.
We've never discussed his name.
But not really anything about his history or even why they have a king instead.
Yeah, no, it was pointed out once.
Yeah.
What I did get from all of this exposition that I did like is, number one, we learn about 3 different places.
Yeah, and I think they're all human places.
I don't think so. I think they're Fey places. I don't think Perithian is the only Fey territory. 100,000 human warriors is nothing to the Fey. Their ability to beat 100,000 humans would be... The Illyrians could easily do that.
Well, think about the whole beginning of this chapter is talking about the Fae versus the Loyalists. That was all humans, led by, not all humans, there were the Illyrians and other Fae, but a majority of humans,
Perinthia, whatever, was part of the human army. They were battling other Fae.
Yeah.
The other Fae weren't just Hybern.
I guess I don't know. Well, I assume with ash arrows and ash weapons, it's an equal
But they're
fight.
that's a difficult resource. And ash still is flammable. You have an entire court of flame wielders. Like, I don't think it's actually that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Consider you could just toast all of the arrows.
I think quite easily if the Fae just wanted to go against the humans, all they need to do is burn the fucking ash trees. Now, maybe the smoke is also toxic to them, so you send a couple, kamikaze style Fae in there to light that shit up.
Oh my
But, oh no, the ash forest got on fire. Oh no, what do we do? We don't worry about anything for the rest of our lives, which are indefinite. We now
That's a
cannot.
good point. Why haven't they just taken them out? Like, if you
That's what I'm saying.
just take out forests, like that's your only, like you just send out people, that's their mission. But I don't think everyone in the Autumn Court can wield fire. Just the brothers and like the sons.
I think
And
there
Feyre.
are high Fae that can wield fire. I would argue there is a very finite amount of powers in way that they could be wielded, right?
Yeah.
And there are a large group of people that have talents that are maybe not as powerful.
Wait, if you can do any type of fire.
Correct. I mean, fuck, if you can carry a torch, I can wield fire with tools. And I just don't see this as the insane thing to overcome. Are you familiar with who Sun Tzu is?
No.
Sun Tzu was a Chinese tactician, blah, blah, blah. He wrote The Art of War.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that book?
No.
No.
If I struggled getting through these chapters, you think I read that book?
Well, okay. But I didn't know if you were familiar with it, not that you read it. Like, everybody knows The Art of War.
Oh, yeah, I guess, like that.
That's why
I
Donald
didn't
Trump
know.
named his book The Art of the Deal. He's the Sun Tzu
know
of
this.
business, I guess. Yeah, no, it's just, he introduced all these tactics, right, that were
Okay.
pre-planes and pre-Roman tactics for a lot of it. But my whole point is, none of these people are tacticians.
No.
Which is incredible given the amount of planning going in that nobody's like, so really, we could just kill these people off. Because Feyre even says, like, how rare ash weapons are, how rare ash trees are. Her sister's very rich fiance, his dad planted a grove and maintains almost all of the ash trees in that area are on this one plantation.
Maybe they're not native to the area, so it takes a lot of water or resources to keep them alive there.
Yeah. Okay, again, how difficult would it be to just eliminate that as a problem?
Oh.
Like, I wonder where all the ash trees are. We can stop by one house and eliminate 90% of this area's weapons. Oh no, what did we do? Well, we put too much nitrogen in their water and now we've nitro burned their trees so they die slowly. Well, do we have time for that? Yeah, we have 500 years. Not to worry. Oh no, what do we do with the humans? They're vulnerable to sharp objects and also just depression. They take themselves out.
So all of this is to say 100,000 humans, it's not a big deal. And you think that's actually 100,000 Fae?
I think Rhys alone could take 50,000 humans.
Fair enough.
I think Amren may accidentally murder 1,000 humans. Like, yeah, I don't think 100,000 humans is that big of a deal.
Okay, yeah, I just pictured this is the only area with Fae. I didn't assume there were other lands with other Fae.
I think Hybern tells us that, right? And then Montserrat is one of the places, right? Did you write down the places' names?
No, that might be another book series. That sounds familiar, but not recently familiar.
Okay.
I don't remember. That one sounds similar to... There's just 3 other places. It doesn't even matter.
I bet.
There's a rich one. And...
a strong one.
Yeah.
And then one that is large enough to be both.
Yeah.
Which I also find really interesting. But I do think that those are places outside of Perinthian. Clearly they're Fae places.
And this kind of at the very end of chapter 20, Feyre asks, can you just take on the King of Hybern? And he's like, maybe, I don't know, his full power, all those things. But the problem isn't the King of Hybern. I think it's the ability to convince this many people to join you and other places to join in your cause. Like, yeah, he's skilled at what he's doing, but those other places want to join on this mission to get rid of this wall.
They've been wronged.
Yeah.
They feel as though they've been persecuted by the humans to an extent, right? It's brought up how I think they feel as though they've been kind of persecuted or having to live in this way because of the lack of what the humans used to provide, right? It's been brought up that,
slavery?
They had slavery.
That they were slaves.
Yeah, and I hate to keep equating this. It is just an argument for modern slavery. It's the same thing. Why were the Southern people so fucking angry, the plantation owners, when they freed slaves? It wasn't some deep thing where they had well thought through plans. It was like, fuck, now I have to do all this work. I can't possibly afford to do all of this and still maintain my huge plantation home.
But I mean, with all the magic and all that, I don't understand why they even needed slaves.
Well, again, I think this is more to be a social commentary than to make sense, and I think that's okay.
Chapter 15 starts as the day after they banged one out. And she's like, I'm back home. That moment. And I realized seeing how Lucian is dealing with being near Elaine, but not seeing Elaine. All the talk about Lucian and him asking all these questions. He's almost dying.
His name is Lucian.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I said no. We're not calling him that. I don't know why I just said yes.
Conflicting information.
And it made me think of knowing who your mate is would be like knowing how you're going to die. You don't know when, you don't know where, you know nothing, you only know the how. They know who their mate is. They don't know if it'll work out. They don't know if anything other than that's who it is.
It's a biologically arranged marriage. Lots of people in in the cultures that observe that think it's amazing. And every so often it's like, wow, my parents picked poorly.
They're keeping it a secret that Nesta is Cassian's mate. Everyone kept it a secret that Rhys was Feyre's mate until both of those men were ready to share that, and or whatever. Cassian, as far as we know, hasn't shared this yet, but they are all keeping it a secret, except for Lucian's, which is obviously freaking out Nesta, and I'm sure Elaine if she finds out.
So I would agree. My question is it because they're the ones who have been Feyed longer that they're more aware of that? Does that make sense? Or is it the male side of this is so much stronger? I can see the argument for Nesta not acknowledging it because she's iron-willed, blah, blah, blah. You know, she is the Ice Queen.
I took it as they're setting Lucian up for failure. If you just met a dude and then you go home and all of a sudden everyone around you is like, that's your soulmate. Like, that's your soulmate. He wants to meet you. And you just went through something incredibly traumatic. You're just like, what the fuck? Or even to your sibling. I just think that they're setting Lucian up for failure to be with his mate or anything like that. But they're setting Cassian up for success by keeping it a secret and keeping quiet. And Cassian just getting to casually hang out with her in the same way that Rhys kind of did, where everyone just kind of left the room so that Feyre and Rhys could hang out and just have completely normal, regular conversations, and that Feyre got to fall in love with him. I don't know where things are going with Nesta and Cassian, but I do see where Cassian gets to hang out with her in regular ways. As Lucian, it's almost stalkery. Like, everyone around you's like, that's your soulmate, and he's like, I just want to be near you and hear about you. I don't know, it's just weird, and it seems like they're setting it up for failure.
I think it has more to do with control. I think what we've learned from Lucian is if there is an established rule or boundary, Lucian sticks within whatever that established rule is. Cassian and Rhys are known to be non-conventional in the way that they handle all forms of precedent, right?
Mm-hmm.
The formality that Lucian's trying to get used to, I think, also exemplifies this. He didn't want to sit at the head of the table because he's not in charge there.
Yeah.
All he knows is you have a mating bond. That's who you go to. That's your person. You have that mating bond. And I think his trauma with how the last one ended definitely informs.
Still haven't addressed that yet. No one's acknowledged it.
It might have been in that exposition shit that we all just sort of tuned out. Even I was tuning in and out of the exposition.
I don't think it was in there.
But
yeah. I just wanted to kind of point that out. That I found it a little irritating that everyone's keeping a secret for Cassian, but not really Lucian.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's a secret. I think everybody knows. And I wouldn't be surprised if he and Nesta didn't have that conversation. Nesta's like, listen, I don't give a shit what you're feeling. You're going to back the fuck up, Junior. And he's like, I'm just going to be over here smelling your hair once every couple days. You yell at me. I'll get a little hard. You get a little angry. It'll be fine.
It's so ridiculous.
It's not how our life works. I annoy you. And I'm like, I just want to be near you. And you're like, I would burn you to the ground. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that would be hot. And then I just keep moving forward.
Chapter 15. So it's the day after they banged one out. Then Lucian calls out Feyre and Rhys for their suspicious behavior. He thinks that it was inappropriate and all this other stuff. And Feyre's like, it was just odd that they continued to defend and defend. I didn't understand why they cared so much about Lucian's opinion of them. Other than, we know what we did was fine. I ended things with Tamlin at this time. Then this is where things progressed. But Feyre's given her story multiple times. And then there's, I think it's in this chapter that it fades out of. And then my mate told him about his side of the story of how things went down. And I was just like, why are you guys spending so much time? Like, either he's going to believe you or not.
I think where this comes in for me, I see where you're coming from 100%. I do understand the importance of her wanting Lucian to understand.
Yeah.
And I do also think that the downside to this, Feyre and Rhys do not actually acknowledge that part of what they did wasn't right.
No, they don't.
Like, Feyre's always like, I didn't touch him until after I'd ended things with Tamlin. You were horny for him off and on under the mountain. You didn't acknowledge any of that. And well, I think, okay, you had this mating bond. You could make it as simple as, I didn't recognize what that bond was until after I'd become Fae and been here and kind of sorted out my own mental trauma from being under the mountain. Once I recognized what that was, it wouldn't be fair for me to keep trying to move on Tamlin.
I also think that Lucian's question is a bit tricky because we also know he asked something similar but wanted different information out of it, which was, when did you find out that you fell for him? When you were with another man? Because that's kind of what he's hoping with Elaine will happen.
I think it's not even a question of when or if it will happen. I think it's a question as to when. And I think him seeking that information is totally fair because he doesn't have a resource. I think you have somebody in the same situation you were in, more or less.
Yeah.
I think you'd be foolish not to ask that question.
At this point with Elaine, it doesn't seem like she could fall in love with anyone else. She seems incredibly depressed.
Sort of like Feyre when Moore first went and got her. I think this is the point. Remember, he says, I saw that I knew you weren't taken. I knew you had been retrieved, more or less, from the manor.
And kind of the irony of it's Feyre who's doing it to Elaine. I don't understand why they don't take Elaine back to the human.
She wouldn't be safe there.
I think that if everyone went with her, that's a pretty good team to have with you.
What is she going to
do
there?
Well, I think that it's just what she needed.
Her dad isn't there.
Closure.
They can't do anything. She can't go see her fiance. Her sisters barely acknowledged her as being worth being around. One of them didn't when they became Fae. It is a very heavily stigmatized thing. The only people that don't believe the Fae are pure evil are the Sisters of the Blessed or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think your fiance being the head of the Fae Hunters, it is a very complicated situation.
Yeah.
I think her taking the time to just work through being depressed and heartbroken, I see her as just a parallel to Feyre in this. Feyre in the Spring Court is exactly how we see Elaine now. And I think...
But with all this dialogue, why don't we have dialogue of Feyre going and hanging out with Elaine and talking to her and helping her feel better and work through it? Just, you're turned against your will.
I think
it's a little worse for Elaine than it was Feyre, because Feyre was dead or not,
Yeah, I would argue Feyre right now doesn't think that she's needed for that. I think she thinks Elaine needs the time to process where she is in the world.
Yeah.
And then can be made to feel better.
She's just left alone.
I don't disagree. I think it is sad. But I don't see it as the flaw in the writing so much. I see it as more of there's a nuanced understanding of that character that maybe I don't have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hope we learn more.
Because if there was something that could be done conversationally, I think Nesta would have handled it.
Chapter 15 ended with them going and visiting the sisters. And we've kind of really already touched on that, where Nesta's pissed, Elaine's depressed, and that's what it ended on.
Do you think Lucian went and saw Elaine when he wasn't supposed to?
He did, even when they were there. He was in the doorway.
Correct.
So, yeah,
but after
I
they
do
left
kind
him
of
in
think
that
so.
room. Yeah, after they left him in his room and they're like, go anywhere, don't fucking talk to her.
Yeah, I don't know. But the twins there, the Wraith twins.
Caradwyn and...
I don't know the other.
Name.
Chapter 16, the team left Lucian and the sisters and went and visited Amren. And that's where there was quite a bit of dialogue in this one where they're talking with Amren. And I freaking love Amren. She is...
such a bitch.
Yeah, but in a good way. Where she was calling them out on their shit. Just like, you're kind of sounding like Tamlin now.
Oh, I was so excited listening to these chapters. Amren's in a shitty mood, period. Immediately, Feyre's like, oh, everybody's keeping a safe distance from Amren. Amren's a grumpy butthole. We don't know.
The books are put together. The one thing she said not to do.
I think there's probably a lot of things going on, and I think she may be hungry, or when those books were put together, a part of her awakened that was otherwise sealed.
They talk a lot, so I thought they were just constantly talking shit or something like that when she's like trying to fall asleep and the books are just yapping.
Yeah, I think it's probably like also when you're watching kids and you don't have kids and you don't realize how much they talk.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, you will go through 18 years before silence happens again. I think it's kind of like that where she's like, these fucking children won't shut the fuck up.
Yeah, she also told Rhys, you should just kill Baron and his sons and make the handsome one High Lord.
I kind of took that as a nice moment for Lucian. We're like, Lucian's the handsome one.
He is. Yeah, it was just a really...
How good looking is Lucian? If she's surrounded by these Illyrians,
she's
into and Lucian's the one where she's like, oh yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah, she's into
hopefully
gingers.
Elaine's
powerful, I got it.
Because I liked where Moore immediately defended Feyre.
Oh, when that was when was it the calling her out for being like Tamlin and more defended it? I don't remember.
Yeah.
I do remember more standing up for her. I was like, I will murder you. And I turned to you and I'm like, I don't think she can do that.
Well, Amren's like, I'd like to see you try. And Mora's like, let's fucking do it. And it just didn't happen, but there was so much tension there. I was so excited.
But I don't know Amren's reaction. I just pictured her being unbothered, swishing her wine around like, okay, you little flea.
Remember last time they fought? Mor held her fucking own against Amren. Do not forget, Mor is so powerful. That's where she isn't a person. She's the Morrigan.
Yeah.
I think that cannot be stated enough either. Like, all of these people are super powerful people.
Yeah.
Mor is above Cassian and Azriel.
Yeah.
She is probably not quite as powerful as Rhys, but she would have to be really close because Rhys is not as powerful as Amren.
Yeah. No, I don't know.
Mor can hold her own.
I was just going to say, she can hold her own is what we do know. Then they talk about the armies. The island is empty. Drake can save Miriam with like
children-made object.
Yeah, and they're like, that must have been how the King of Highburn
located them.
Yeah. Plan to turn Highburn people against them. And then lots of discussion of a trade route, and I bet Dad is involved.
Which I'm on 10 points for.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of debate as to whether or not the King of Highburn was just depressed upon writing out or signing the treaty and decided to fuck over his people, or whether he did it intentionally to sow this group of people that were so infuriated for 500 years, right?
That's wild. I don't know what to think of it.
It could go either way. And then Rhys brings up that, hey, it's not just him. It's his people. And it's not just his people. He's like, there are people in even our courts, even in Perinthian, that are like, this sucks. We missed when we had human slaves. Or they each had to give up parts of their territory.
Well, I'm just going to rely on you when that stuff comes up because, yeah, my last note for this little section of context is such a boring chapter. It sounds like info Ryan likes. And something is amiss with the cauldron. King wants to use the holes in the wall to find what made them.
It's later kind of addressed, the holes in the wall. I think Feyre discusses this with Amren.
I didn't think that he wanted to use the cauldron to figure out how the holes were made so he can take down the wall with that method, figure out what made the holes and go find that is what I thought he was going to do.
I don't think it helps you that much for finding out who did what, unless the cauldron, again, can just sniff out the magic that did it and then you chase it around. But if something is so powerful that it went through the wall, that Feyre even finds it, how did she put it? It almost makes her sick as she comes up to the wall.
Yeah, right? tang in her mouth.
Yeah. Just everything's wonky. Your magic feels wonky. Everything kind of sucks as you get close to the wall. Something that tears through that, I mean, obviously it's super beefy, and I stand by, I think Amren is one of them.
Or something like her.
Yeah, maybe another version of her. But then, man, there's so many questions I have for the whole Amren bit. Before we get into Vis, have they had dinner yet, or is Vis during that discussion?
I thought they were just hanging out at Amren's place, and then she's kind of getting sick of them hanging out. She's like, it'd be really nice to have my place back.
Well, yeah, that's because Mor and Azriel have had to be around her now.
Yes.
And I think it's because Rhys doesn't necessarily trust her entirely with the book.
Oh.
Is what I could kind of get from.
I thought it was just because there was a book and they're protecting it.
Yeah, but you're not adding more protection than Amren. Like, you know what I mean? If something's beefy enough to come in and take out Amren and then get the book, you're just going to have your other two people killed too. I think something to do with Amren's mood is why Rhys why she's being watched. Because she even brings it up. She's like, I don't need fucking babysitters, right?
Yeah, no, she's very irritable.
Azriel
but she was really funny too.
Oh, I agree. She was a huge asshole. And that was my favorite. And then they're like, well, let's go to dinner. But you had brought up the holes in the walls and whatnot. I do think that obviously it's going to be a huge point in this story.
Well, at the very end of this, they talked about the bone carver too.
We're going to get into that because I have questions.
The end of chapter 16. Oh, Feyre, they were coming up with ideas on what to do. Feyre suggests she tries nullifying the cauldron again. And
they're like, you didn't do good the first time, idiot. And she's like, but I might do better. Feyre's a dummy again. We had 14 chapters of smart Feyre. Now we get dummy Feyre again.
So I think they ended with they're going to try to patch the holes. Amren suggests using the sister. That's what she said. You're starting to sound like Tamlin. Only allies are in Perinthian, but Spring Court, Summer Court, and Autumn Court are definitely not on their side.
I think Spring Court isn't necessarily going to be an ally because of Tamlin. I think the people of the Spring Court are more likely to be allies because of Feyre and Cursebreaker. I think the Summer Court will be able to put their shit aside for a minute. Maybe not even entirely because of Feyre and Rhys, but because the third in command guy there has this huge crush on Amren. I think Autumn Court's not going to end up being that big of a deal because
they're going to kill everyone and Lucian becomes...
I think Lucian will become High Lord, but I think there's going to be some small resolution to this because of Lucian's mom. I think is going to be a key character in how Autumn Court comes around. Because Lucian's mom assisted Feyre under the mountain.
But I still don't think so because Lucian's mom was totally fine with how things went with Lucian even. She hasn't seen her son in forever.
What makes you think she's totally fine? I don't think so.
She's passive.
I think that it's hard to say how she is because culturally within the Fae, but we do know that the women do not have as much say. They are a figurehead. I think that his mom ends up being an ally to them, and therefore
you've called nearly this entire series. So really, I see it as...
I'm doing great, but this is where it all falls apart. Here's the thing. At some point, this is going to fall apart on me because I would not have called this. We have 3 chapters of exposition that could have been 15 minutes worth of words if it was done well, but we keep getting Feyre's feelings in them, and it's so annoying to me.
Well, that's also why I didn't think she took the contraceptive brew after the House of Mist, was because we always get to hear about her feelings, her thought process, decision-making. I'm like, that sounds like something she would... No, I don't think anything came of that, so...
Well, not yet. Again, we don't know. Faye could be pregnant for years. Years.
Before we find out.
Yeah. And evidently it's hard to make Faye babies. How important is the contraceptive brew? How potent is Rhys's seed? Has Rhys never had sex before Feyre? And what's her name?
Men can take it too.
Yeah, I'm just more shocked by the fact of nobody's discussing the likelihood of pregnancy. And Rhys, of all people, he's been alive quite some time. He hasn't sired any children that we're aware of. That would be wild. What if he did?
He just has little...
What if there's a little Rhys?
And they show up at the doorstep.
Yeah, what if there's just a little Rhys's Pieces and he shows up and he knocks on the door of the wind house on top of the mountain. He's like, I just climbed all these stairs. Are you my papa? And he's like 35 years old. He's like, I just need a place to land. He's like, who's your mother? He's like, you wouldn't remember her. But he's got like short little wings because he's only a quarter Illyrian at this point.
That's so stupid.
But he's still got a hog. I'm like, oh,
that's creepy.
He's 35 years old. I established that immediately. You're the one that's like, they're still adults. Feyre's 20. Let's chill. I'm not
I think she's finally 21.
No,
maybe.
That would mean it would have been 2 years since any of us happened. She's 20 years old. She couldn't legally drink, but they keep giving her fairy wine under the table.
We don't know their drinking age there.
We can assume.
Chapter 17 is when they send the letters to all the High Lords. Oh,
you skipped dinner.
There was no dinner, or at least I have no notes.
Holy shit, you missed. Okay, so they were at Amren's place for a little while.
This is chapter 17 is the dinner, I think, is what you're thinking of. And Nesta came out.
Yeah.
That's chapter 17.
Really?
Chapter 17, they send the letters.
Oh, no. Hold on. We got to discuss the war strategy real quick.
Do we really?
Just for a second, because Feyre says, oh, it's fucking brilliant. Because Rhys is like, don't worry, I've been hiding around all these other little kingdoms, sowing discontent between each other, convincing them they can't trust the other one, blah, blah, blah. It's this kindergarten strategy of how to make people angry at each other. And Feyre goes, oh, fucking brilliant. And I just had a moment where I'm like, is it? Is it brilliant? Or is it just kind of okay? Now, if you started murdering those people and framing the other group for it,
I think that's what he was doing.
Maybe, but even then, it seems like not a job for the High Lord. You don't need to incite this in upper management. You need to incite this in the lower level people, right?
I don't know what he's doing. We just know he's been flying around doing things.
He's sowing discontent between them. And I think that that's awesome. I was just so distracted by how impressed Feyre was by this, given the bullshit she pulled off in the first 14 chapters.
She's constantly impressed by him. We've already talked about his foreplay is just existing.
Have penis. Foreplay done.
Yeah, him just being near her, she is seduced. Chapter 17, after the letters are sent, they flew with Cassian. Oh, this is when Feyre flew with Cassian and they talked about Nesta and talking about how Cassian really sympathizes with the trauma Nesta's been through. He's going to get revenge. And I think he also talked about some of his trauma, but I don't remember this anymore now.
I think his trauma was directly in relation to the fact that he couldn't keep a promise to her.
That's what it was.
And
yeah, he broke his promise to her that he'd keep her and Elaine safe.
And he recognizes a part of that as her trauma.
Yeah.
I think Cassian is so far arguably the best character. He's not my favorite character, but he's the best. Like, the dude's awesome, right? He wants to train her to fight. He puts up with her shitty attitude in a way that's fun for him, I guess, not so much her. She genuinely is pissed. But he does discuss with Feyre, he's like, it makes sense that she would feel this way. This is what's gone on. He kind of brings Feyre into it.
Yeah.
And I think that it's really sweet. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, and talked about how he was upset that no one told him she was a high lady. And it wasn't that he was upset at the situation. He was just hurt that Rhys didn't tell him as his friend and that Feyre didn't tell him as his friend.
Well, also as his job.
Yeah.
He brings that up. He said, as friends, you're Rhys's. He's like, as a high lady, you are ours.
Yeah.
And I think that was another beautiful point of him reintroducing how important duty is to him.
Yeah.
I said duty.
But I'm not giggling at that. No.
He loves duty.
Moving on.
It's his duty. Fine.
He feels comfortable sharing all these thoughts and opinions with them. And I really like that too.
I think it's a legitimate friendship.
Yeah.
He does see it as family. He just also sees it as, you are more than just family to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I meant by duty. Yes, there we go.
Wow, you got
I got it. That's all I wanted. Oh, lovely.
So Amren talks to Nesta, and Nesta is not scared
You missed.
of Amren. Oh.
That is an amazing thing. My favorite Nesta Moore thing happened. Moore is like, that's a lovely dress. Like, luckily, I don't want to steal it off you. Fortunately, blah, blah, blah. Nesta, in the most badass way, her confidence is so wild. She looks at Moore's dress and says, luckily, I don't return the sentiment. As in, she could fucking steal it from Moore if she wanted to, but Moore's dress is too ugly for her to just rip it off of her.
I don't remember this
Oh my God.
way.
It was my favorite. Because she's like, oh, that blue dress is lovely, blah, blah, blah. She's like, I have half a mind to take it from you, but I know that I couldn't take it from you, blah, 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 or something like that. And Nesta's just like, consider yourself lucky that you're wearing an ugly dress, or I would fucking take it.
I did not take it that way. Now I want to re-listen
Perfect.
to that.
I will gladly re-listen to that moment because it was probably my favorite interaction with Nesta outside of she and Amren's. Nesta is amazing. I enjoy Nesta to no end.
Yeah, no, she's entertaining.
She's such
Zero
a dick.
fear. And that's where I was saying Amren talks to Nesta. Nesta asks her about her eyes glowing, and we find out it's because the spell couldn't contain what was inside.
To me, the coolest thing was Nesta just looks at her point blank and is like, why are your eyes silver?
Glowing too.
It took Amren kind of by surprise for a moment.
Nobody's asked me
And
that.
yeah, Amren took a moment and everybody else gets real quiet like, oh shit. And she's like, these people don't have the balls to do that. It's because it's the one thing that couldn't contain me. Or it's the one thing that the spell that contains me couldn't contain.
Yep.
And she's like, what are you then? And the room somehow gets even quieter. Everybody's really scared now. I'm sure you could just hear heartbeats just bump, 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 bump. And if everybody else in this room is terrified, imagine Lucian's brain right now.
Yeah.
Because Lucian's like, oh, fuck. My mate's sister's about to get murdered. And Amren is the story. This is something, I don't know if we addressed this in the last episode or not. I want to bring this up. Lucian says, Amren is a story they told us as kids to get us to behave. She is the fucking boogeyman. I got goosebumps right now. I'm like, oh, she's the boogeyman. She's the John Wick of these people. And her hair is like John Wick. She's Keanu Reeves. she's somehow more attractive. Amazing. That is my favorite interaction.
Well, and then Amren has the moment of saying, we are the same. And I think it struck Nesta, that conversation, but then Nesta just played it cool. She's like, essentially, we're not the same. Or I don't know what you're talking about.
I think what struck Nesta, I think Nesta's immediate reaction was like, the fuck we are. And Amren's like, not in physical form, but like our power.
Yeah.
With it, we are insurmountable. And Nesta's like, what the fuck ever. And then she's like, you just make sure that when you decide to be a dickhead, you obliterate everything in your way. And that's where Nesta's like.
I think that's when Amren was endearing to Nesta.
I think maybe part of what's affecting Amren's attitude is the aura of Nesta being there. I think Nesta's a game changer for Amren. Remember, Amren's been bored for 500 years, more or less, right?
And she made it sound like the cauldron couldn't contain Nesta into her Fey body, almost.
And this is what makes me question, do you think there's something about the Archeron women?
Clearly.
That is outside of just, because we have Nesta, who, through sheer force of will...
We don't really know much about their mom.
We don't know dick about their mom, other than Nesta and Feyre look like their mom. Elaine does not, right? And then we know Elaine is the soft-hearted, sweet one, blah, blah, blah. But we don't know what the cauldron's done for her, other than made her able to survive on the bare minimum of whatever it is she's eating or drinking.
Yeah, she's so frail.
But Amren, that moment was so cool.
Chapter 17 ends with Lucian surprised how the group interacts, like having their own thoughts and opinions. And Lucian warns of the courts finding out about Feyre and is she coming to this meeting? And they didn't really address it. They just kind of, we'll talk about it later.
Lucian bringing up, I like the way Lucian brought up, can I offer you unsolicited advice? An important note, just for reference and everything, anytime somebody offers you unsolicited advice, it is criticism. There is no such thing as unsolicited advice that is not criticism.
I didn't take this one. Oh, I guess, it was kind of criticism.
I think it's good that even the way she wrote it, can I offer this to you? And Rhys says, I've never had anybody ask before they just did it. Yeah. And I think it was a really nice moment between Lucian and Rhys, because Rhys has also been teasing Lucian a bit as a way to distract himself from the clothes to everything. And I actually had a moment where I was sad for Lucian when Lucian's like, is there a cost to the clothes? Like, he's clearly down.
Given up everything to try to be near Elaine.
I don't think he had a choice. He was going to die.
In the Spring Court?
Correct.
Yeah, they probably were going to kill him.
I don't think this was actually about him coming to see Elaine. I don't think he had an option in that moment. Feyre's like, she terminated, looked at him and was like, come with me if you want to live.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And then they almost died several times anyway. She was a bad Terminator. But the advice he gives is what?
Just warns about them finding out that she's using their power.
And then what is his concern?
That they'll kill her to get it back.
I guess I meant more so like, does his father already know?
Yeah, so they're trying to figure out how much does he know. And I don't think we have an answer yet. But would we find out, would he share that he knows this? Because it's from the brothers directly to their dad. That's very private information.
I would also argue the part of this that confuses me, if the dad does know already, there's already a hit out for Feyre, right?
Yeah.
And if he believes Feyre has his power, who the fuck is he sending to kill her?
Yeah. I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like, that logic kind of eludes me. He may be angry, but I think the reality of saying, like, if he knew he would kill her, be like, how about if he knows better than to try?
Chapter 18, they're discussing meeting with Kier, Mor's dad, and I like that Feyre pulls Rhys aside and saying, if you do this, you're hurting Mor. He's like, I don't understand why. She should be used to this by now. And she's like, well, it sounds like it's going to hurt her.
So I took it differently, and it may be because maybe I zoned part of this out. I thought she said, it's going to hurt Mor to do this. And he said, it's still necessary. Like, it sucks, but she should be fine. And this is just a part of our job, is having to do inconvenient shit sometimes.
Yeah, I took it as foreshadowing. Mor's gonna be hurt somehow, not physically, I think emotionally hurt by what's going on. And then I have the note, I don't understand what's happening here about the Nightmare Court. There was a whole lot of discussion. What's going on? I was very confused. Either you're going to talk to them or you don't. They're going to
that's what they're
join or
going to
they
discuss with Cure, right?
Yeah.
So they have a choice. In the laws of the court, basically the residents of a night court are not required to help the actual night court during war or battle.
Yeah.
That's all a part of like their small treaty, I guess you would call it. They're kind of an independently run sub-nation, so to speak. It would be like states would have the choice as to whether or not to participate with their National Guard.
Yes, that's exactly how, yeah. And everyone, while during this conversation and hangout time, they're all at each other's throats. I really wanted to take like more notes on like, oh, this person said this and this person said this. I'm like, actually, everyone's just irritable.
Everybody's catty and mad.
Yeah.
But I do think that does show you the stress everybody's under. I would say Azriel is the only neutral party so far in all of this.
Yeah, he's quiet.
But not without his thoughts. So when he's flying Feyre away for her flight training.
Yeah, that's in chapter 19.
I would say that's where we kind of notice that he's not just aware of everything going on. He has opinions.
Yeah.
He's just also aware that they don't matter. I would say Feyre damaged some relationships, though, by not telling him about the High Lady thing. I think that we see that semi across the board, too, and how much of Amren's animosity is also due to that.
Whoa, I didn't even think of that. Her being upset that she wasn't told.
Yeah, well, can you imagine more?
None of them were invited either.
Well, yeah, they didn't get to go to the ceremony, you know. I think there's a lot of issues. I would be hurt. I think I would see you being hurt by it. I don't think I would be, because I think my personality is so much more of like, oh, shit isn't my business until somebody's made it my business.
Technically not my business, but I thought that we would be close enough that I would be invited type of thing.
I think it's super reasonable that you'd feel that way.
And in here is where Feyre talks about how she wants to fly, kind of out of nowhere. Oh, because she wants to do that when fighting and battling. And they're talking about that'll take forever. And it reminded me of when we talked about her learning how to read, of how long will it take her to figure this out? Because I thought it should take a long time. You're like, she already knows English or she already knows the language. It shouldn't take her that long. And it took her 2 weeks to figure out how to read, to the point that we never talked about it again. And they were having this super long discussion of learning how to fly. It's going to take forever, all these things. Azriel's going to be the one to teach her, I believe, because he was locked up and didn't get to learn how to use his wings until much later.
He doesn't see himself as an Illyrian.
Yeah.
Number one, he wasn't raised as an Illyrian. I think that's huge. And him teaching her the customs that go with it, the way he said they. And he does say, you're not Illyrian, but to an Illyrian, this is considered rude. They see this as rude. I think him using that in his point of reference for Illyrians being one is really interesting.
Yeah.
It really points more to him seeing himself as a bastard.
Man, it was really sad. But I really like that we just got to hear a little more from Azriel finally. But in chapter 18, when she says that she wants to, they're like, that's ridiculous. I guess you might as well. I kind of see it as if it's really that difficult and will take a long time. It's kind of a waste of her time to learn how to fly. Why not do a different transformation? Because you have Tamlin that transforms into this beast, right? This insane beast and power, and he protects his court with it. And then you have an entire population of people with wings and fighting and all that. And Feyre's like, you know what I'm going to use my shape-shifting power for? Turning into something that there's a huge population that already does this, as opposed to turning into this beast like Tamlin. It doesn't need to be the same beast, but just some huge beast for protecting.
I totally agree. I think it's odd that she keeps using the term shape-shifting and then refers to him as her wings.
Yeah.
Because every other time she has shape-shifted, it's been, I had his face, I had his voice. You know what I mean? When she was being so-and-so. She isn't saying, I have his wings. It's my wings are doing this. My wings are doing that.
She just kind of does this. When we first started the book, she called the horse Tamlin, put her on my horse. I'm like, it's not your horse.
Okay, for all intents and purposes, it could be. But I guess she will bring up, I used the Baron's fire.
Yeah.
She doesn't say, I used Rhys's wings, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if when they gave her the drops of shit, right? Because it was their essence or whatever, if they are her wings, if it's more like,
the way Lucian makes it sound, and just how you worded it there, she gets a drop of their essence. I don't think that they knew she can draw from their power. I think she is exercising power that she's not allowed to, or it's like wrong.
I wonder if they aren't her wings, if it isn't more of a reverse Rhys. Rhys uses magic to put his wings away. It's not really just hide them, right? They kind of cease to exist when he's using that magic because he can sit in a normal chair. He can lean up against a wall.
Yeah.
It's not invisible wings. They aren't there at all. I wonder if it's not the same thing with Feyre, but in reverse, where Feyre can allow her wings to come out as opposed to shape-shifting wings into existence.
But she mentioned that she's using Tamlin's power when she reached for creating them. And she felt kind of icky about it because it's Tamlin.
I guess that's fair. I just don't like the idea of that, primarily because, number one, you're shape-shifting. What the fuck's happening to your clothes? You know what I mean?
It is a fantasy book.
Okay, on this note, if you want to fly, you control enough wind to blow a pebble 5 feet. Give yourself a stiff breeze coming off of things. You'll be fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's these moments where it's like, oh, why are we practicing over water? Because it hurts less to land in it. Not from 500 feet, it doesn't. It's still fucking water.
Yeah.
That shit's like concrete unless you're breaking surface tension.
No.
Like, Billy, you're still going to be broken. Oh, why aren't we flying over a land of soft cotton trees or jello? Whatever.
She can shield her falls, too.
She could winnow. Getting close to the ground. Boop. Winnow.
Great point. She
There's
never
so many
needs to fall.
things.
She just doesn't do it, and you just winnow back to where you want to be.
Yeah, in Asriel's arms, where you're safe. No?
I'm backing up just a second, because we started chapter 19 just about her wanting to learn how to fly.
I got horny for Asriel, and I wanted to be there.
This is when they tell Nesta that she may have powers, and it could be useful, and she's just like, I don't fucking care what you guys want. I'm just here to kill.
She has power. She acknowledges that she does, too.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
In the sense of, they're like, you could help us, blah, 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 blah. She's like, I'm not here for you. I'm going to kill the King of Hybern. I'm going to do this. It isn't a question of, oh, how do I do it? She knows that she could. She's aware of her power, and she's been reading books in that library for weeks, nonstop. What has she learned?
But it was a romance book, the one that they saw.
Yeah, look at the romance book we're reading. Look what I've learned. Winnowing's a term. I know what Illyrian wings look like now. Don't see that in the history books.
At one point, Feyre undermined Rhys, but he was unbothered by it. He's like, no, you're fine. Like, say your opinions. Tell me your opinions. And I was a little bothered by this scene with Feyre. Feyre says, I won't undermine you, and you won't undermine me. So Rhys-Sand is unbothered by what she did, but she's bothered by what she did. She's like, I want to be a united front, at least for a couple years. We make these decisions together. We look like we agree on things. I think Feyre doesn't want to be undermined.
What really bugs me, they're equals. And this was something we discussed when we first saw this happen, right? When she became a High Lady. It does not work. You do not have two people of equal power running things without there being disagreement or some strife.
Yeah. And I do agree that they should agree on things when making a final decision, but it just rubbed me the wrong way that she's like, I won't do this and you won't do this. But his entire view the entire time was like, no, please tell me your opinions. You're not undermining me if we're all discussing it, other than
this is her sneaky way of being like, please quit telling me your opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have a whole conversation outdoors about what they're going to do, all this other stuff. And then like somebody walks by and she's like, this is probably not the place to have this discussion. I'm like, why were you talking out loud the entire time? You two could have been mind vibing out in public while walking around. Why are you talking out loud about all these secrets and tactics and plans that you're making? Just have the discussion out in your head.
Yeah, or in the bedroom. Or anywhere.
They're just in Valaris talking about it, and they're like, this probably isn't the place. I'm like, you could have switched it into your head immediately.
100%.
Or unless when they put their shields down for each other, they're putting their shields down for anybody.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe. They've had so many discussions in their head where it's like, oh, super secret squirrel.
Like, can they put a shield around both of their heads, like where they're both connected, but nobody else is?
Do you remember the movie Get Smart?
Kind of.
Do you remember the Cone of Silence?
No.
Okay. There's this little thing. It's put up the Cone of Silence, and it's so two people can talk to each other and nobody else can hear them. And it's like this little force field, so noise and stuff can't go around it. But it just reminds me so much of that when you're like, could they put a shield around both of their heads? And it's like they just boop, throw a little thing in the air, and then it's a Cone of Silence with 2 a minute. And then one of them's trying to like talk to somebody else is trying to talk to them from the outside, and they're just talking to each other, but their mouths are moving. Nobody can see any.
Now I'm going to look this up. This isn't Get Smart.
Yes.
Oh my God, this looks so stupid.
Which one? Steve Carell? You don't remember this movie?
The old one.
Oh, the old one was funny too, but the new one, first of all, Anne Hathaway. I'm going to have one moment here. Whenever we talk about good-looking famous people, I forget. I adore Anne Hathaway. I can't tell if I find her incredibly attractive or if it's just so much I just like her.
Look at this. They're like in two little plastic
that's the OG
bubbles.
One. Yeah, that's the OG
like
one.
A tube connecting them. It looks so weird.
That's what you described you wanted.
What is Beauty and the Beast, the glass thing that covers up the
rose.
The rose. It's like two of those that they're talking into also.
I don't know.
Like one for each person is sitting inside of it. Oh my God, is this the spy movie? No, it is.
Yes. You remember Anne Hathaway sexily moving through the lasers, and then Steve Carell does it sexily. It just dominates it.
I thought this had to do with...
Such a great movie. Find Kirfnif. Christoph.
What is the guy? It's not Mr. Bean. That's who I thought was in this movie. The spy movie. I thought this was
Mr. Bean is a separate thing, but also great.
Yeah, when I was thinking, I think...
You think Steve Carell looks like Mr. Bean?
No, just this movie's humor.
Is he still alive?
Mr. Bean?
Yeah. Will you Google that for me? I want to make sure he's still good to go. He is a lovely human. He's been famous for so long and hasn't Me Too'd anybody. Really speaks to him, I think.
Yeah, he died 3 years ago.
No, he didn't. Mm-hmm. Let me see. Are you... No, you're full of shit.
I am. I'm just fucking with you. He's 69 years old.
Thank God. Rowan Atkinson. There we go. I was about to be so sad, and you did that to me on purpose.
Yeah, I did. It's entertaining.
Have you ever considered that you're mean?
In chapter 18, because we're moving on.
That's fair. Cone of Silence.
They talk about Lucian. Do you think Lucian's going to backstab him?
No.
Rhys makes a comment. He had the fox mask for a reason, or he's considered a fox for a reason.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think foxes in general are deceptive. I think foxes are considered
sneaky.
Sly. Yeah, and I think cunning. I would say maybe he will backstab them. If he does backstab them, it will be for Elaine's sake.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think we give him forgiveness.
Yeah. And then at the end of this chapter is when they're talking about going to the Hewn City, and Feyre's talking about it with him. And he said, you can be whatever you want to be while you're there, but do know you're aware of who I have to be while I'm there.
And she's like, I was your hooer last time.
Yeah.
And the word stung him a little bit. He doesn't like that word because he was Amarantha's hooer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like, you can do whatever you want. You just know who I have to be. Why does he still have to be that person when he's there? He's coming to a point where you need to ask them for help, all this stuff for this mission that doesn't line up with the man that you say you need to be while you're there.
Disagree. Strongly disagree with this. If you're going to say, guys, I need your help, the way to do it with that group of people is not groveling. It is showing up being like, I am the man. These motherfuckers think they're going to come take over our shit. I will wreck them with your help. And if I get wrecked, I'm coming to wreck you. Like, I think that is such a stronger statement.
Yeah, I just kind of found it comical that he's like, if you need to play that role when we go back, this is who I am.
Really, he's like, but you keep playing the role you were playing too, right? He's like, I'm going to go sit on that throne and you come up and blow me. Like,
stuff.
You don't think that's where it's going?
No, I don't think so.
I think she's going to be like, I'm the high lady. This is my high splooge. And then she...
Oh my God, Ryan.
Oh, that was too far. You told me Rowan Atkinson was dead for 3 years. You had this coming.
For like 10 seconds. All the longer you believed it.
It didn't take me long to make the splooge noise.
I think she's going to go there and try to play a similar role as Rhys, and Moore is going to be hurt, and she's going to try to be there for more. I'm not sure. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't think she's going to play the role of a whore at this time around. Actually, she might. I don't know.
She will.
Feyre sometimes disappoints me, and that would disappoint me.
Feyre is a queen of fan service for people who are into it. I wonder if when they go, Rhys is like, you know who I have to be. You be whoever you have to be. If she comes in and is like, this motherfucker's a lightweight. Wait till you see what I'm going to do. It's like bad cop, worst cop instead of good cop, bad cop.
Chapter 19.
I haven't given up yet.
They show up. They're fighting. Feyre is thirsting after just...
Cassian.
Yeah, just...
She has a moment with, what's his name too? The ginger guy.
Yeah,
Lucian.
so I think Lucian
She's
and
like,
Cassian...
his muscular thighs and those pants. I'm like, she's a real ass lady.
She's
all about them thighs. And somebody with very small thighs. I'm like, oh, do I need to start doing squats? What's going on here?
And Rhys isn't there. I thought he was for some reason. Cassian's upset. Oh, this is when he shares that he's upset about her being the High Lady. And Cassian talked about his perspective of Rhys under the mountain and after Feyre left. So Feyre left for a few months and Rhys shut down and it was quiet in his head. So I'm guessing Rhys must be allowed into their minds a little more often. Like they allow it and they just like chat and hang out, like calling each other up type of thing. Because he was talking about how quiet it was and he never heard from him.
Well, he's the general of Rhys's armies. I think that there's supposed to be a certain amount of contact. Like in an ideal world, if you're the president and the 5-star general, you guys don't communicate for a few months. Can you imagine how that really works?
Yeah. And it was sad. It was just another, I really like Cassian.
I do too.
And how he speaks his mind in that he does view Feyre as his friend. It's not his friend's wife, girlfriend, whatever. You're both my friends and you hurt me and you hurt me.
And he sees Feyre and Rhys as equal in duty.
Yeah.
Immediately. He's like, you're my High Lady.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big thing to him.
Oh, and it was this time, this is the chapter where Nesta showed up to fight with Amren. Azriel and Feyre go to train. Azriel touches her wings. She didn't make it weird like I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I thought she was going to come.
Yeah, I thought she was going to talk about like she got chills and shivers and just all this. He was very professional. He did exactly what he needed to quickly.
He's like a great male OBGYN.
Yes.
But he's like, I'm not going to touch the clit. I'm not here for that. We're just going to forceps and give him a quick schwab in and out of that bad boy.
No.
Why am I in trouble?
None of that is, no.
So would you say a professional OBGYN is going to play the clit a little bit?
Stop, Ryan.
The answer is no, I believe.
No.
See? I think he did a nice job.
It's weird.
I don't make the rules. I'm not a doctor.
Chapter 20.
Or an Illyrian.
Chapter 20 was also such a boring chapter.
Well, she discussed the muscles. And I like that Azriel is like, so all you need to do is get a stronger core, stronger legs, stronger arms, stronger shoulders, stronger back, stronger sense of will. And she's like, oh, so everything. He's like, yep.
Yeah, good luck, girl.
Yeah. And then she's like, well, I managed to lift them off the ground, but it strained my ass. And he's like, yeah, it's going to do that. Like, you're going to have to get tough. I just think it's really funny that we've heard about how tough Feyre is and how strong she's become. She can push Rhys' hand away. She has these muscles. She's just so fucking lazy she's not using them. Is that what we're getting at here?
I don't know.
Because these wings, if they're 40 feet long, they are heavy.
They're not 40 feet long.
She has a massive cock. And
no,
you need to
she
accept
doesn't.
it. She does. When she gets the wings, the penis shows up too. Illyrian fighting leathers, and it's just becoming more and more full. Like now it's just this massive bulge. She's like, my wings are in. And Azriel's like, that's not all. Oh, those are my wings. I can tell by the dick. Wouldn't that be cool? She's like trying to balance everything out. She's like, I guess I'll throw on Morse titties so that I can somewhat know what's going on here.
Stop.
They're like, wow, this is a real Build-A-Bear of a woman. Look at her go.
No more. Oh my
okay,
God.
just Azriel's pain.
No, it's just wings. If you want to imagine her with a dick, I guess.
It makes no
your
difference to me.
story.
It makes no difference to me. She's like, oh man, I don't know why Azriel. Oh, that's why Azriel doesn't fly as fast. He's got all that drag.
So
He's not built for speed.
Chapter 20.
Okay.
They're in Valaris. This was such a boring chapter. I didn't realize until partway through. I'm like, where they're in a library. Why are we still talking about being in a library? They're in some library pit thing in Valaris. It's just a really big deal. There's public libraries in the human lands.
Hold on. They're not in Valaris, are they, for this?
He kept using the word this.
I think this
would be a place of refuge. He kept using a where we're located when talking about Valaris, because they talked about how humans are welcome to Valaris. It's really hard to get the word out.
Because nobody's supposed to know about Valaris.
Oh, not really humans. The half-humans.
I don't think...
Fae. We're welcome. And he's like, yes, this is a place of refuge. This. Valaris is. So yeah, I think the library is in Valaris.
So what doesn't make any sense to me is he's like, they burned a bunch of the books, blah, 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 when the humans found out, or when we were invaded. Then the King of Hybern and everybody already knew about Valaris.
No, this is other locations. All of Perinthian libraries.
Understood.
Is what
the public library system in Perinthian.
It's not even a public library.
Well, it's public to some of the public. It's a segregated public library system. No?
I don't know.
It seems like all the knowledge. Do you know what this is based on?
What?
The Library of Alexandria. Are you familiar with that?
Yes. Okay, that is exactly how this was coming off.
Yeah, and then a bunch of the books were burned, blah, 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 like the Library of Alexandria.
What is at the bottom of the pit?
I think I zoned out. I didn't know there was a pit.
You didn't even know there was a pit.
Hold on. See if you can spark my memory more than pit. Last time there was an Alaskan bullworm.
Well, they're walking down this like spiral thing. I don't know.
I assume.
Lotho, the priestess, is there. Do you have something to add about her?
She got jacked up hands.
Yeah, I tried looking up fan art, and she's a beautiful priestess, and I'm like, that is not how she was described as. She looked like she was battered individual with mangled hands.
I thought they just cut out her tongue so she couldn't say who the people were that tortured her, and then they beat the shit out of her hands so she couldn't write it down.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like we could have got there through just... I feel like what these Fae would have really benefited from was 70s board games, right?
I don't understand the reference.
So, Pictionary obviously isn't going to work because she would need to use both her hands because she didn't have use of fingers, right?
I am staring at you because I feel like you were setting me up.
It's not a good joke.
Something stupid.
It is. It's so...
What is it?
Okay. I love that you have so much faith in this. Not everything I say is dumb.
What game from the 70s?
Trying to remember the name, but I've been stalling this whole time. What's the one where you act things out again?
The charades?
Yes. Thank you. I remember Pictionary, but I could not remember charades. Yeah. Charades. They could have charaded their way into the answer to this. And also, for a second, when she just talks about how her fingers are all...
mangled.
Yeah. I was like, oh shit. If you do something to one of the priestesses, it happens to all the librarians. Because I thought that she did it like, oh, her hand matches Ianthe's hand. But I don't think that's the case, obviously.
No.
It was explained that is
but it was confusing for a second there because
Right?
she was just thinking back on what happened to Ianthe and what she did to Ianthe.
And she's like, I missed the tongue. God damn it. I knew I was forgetting something.
Moving along, there's a pit, a big bottomless pit that they talk about, and you can't see down it. Nobody knows what is at the bottom of it.
Is it Nesta's heart?
Yeah. Well, the fact that you don't even, like, I was hoping to theorize with you on this one. One time, Rhys bet Cassian to fly to the bottom of it and see what's at the bottom of it. And Cassian's like, yeah, sure. Why not? He flies down and he comes back up. Essentially a changed man. Won't talk about it. Never does. Was distraught and did not talk to anyone for a very, very, very long time. And any time Rhys tried bringing it up, he would like go ghost white and never talk about it. So we don't know.
Curiosity never came over Rhys and he was like, fuck it, I'll winnow my way back. Like,
I don't know, but it traumatized Cassian.
it's so weird. There's no way I wouldn't have gone down and figure out what that is.
It took me a long time to realize why they're even in the library. They grabbed a book. I'm like, what book did you guys need? It's to talk about the wall, the history of the wall, why it's there. It's temporary.
The wall was not meant to be a permanent solution.
That's what I meant. It's meant to be temporary.
Right.
And then there's a tiny X. I thought they left the library. They didn't. They were flirty, sexual, almost had a sex scene
In the
library. And I did a tiny X because it was close. But then he leaves, and then they just go right into talking about the book.
Would the librarian have watched?
I don't want to talk about that. I don't think she would have consented.
I mean, she could walk away, close her eyes,
Rude.
I think she could leave. I think maybe she would have watched, so it seems like she would be lonely. Don't you think? She's trying to Helen Keller her way through life, kind of like can't speak or sign language. She's got nothing. Just watching two people fuck. It might be fine.
Or she's just like, guys, do you need another book or not? Just leave.
Masturbating would be really difficult for her.
I don't want to think about her masturbating. No.
Saying, it's a challenge. Do you think somebody like goes down and throws her one once in a while?
No.
Really?
I don't think so.
That's sad. If I was Rhys, that's the first thing I would take care of as High Lord. Be like, hey, our librarians cannot just be stopped up that way. And he has the mind power to make it incredible. We've learned that.
That he hasn't used yet on Feyre.
What if he has? That's his A game.
Oh my God.
She does seem
You're
quite
right.
thirsty. That's why we're not getting much out of it, because it's not working on us. We're
not
immune.
getting mind fucked by Rhys like Feyre is.
Yeah, we're immune to it. And in reality, Rhys is just going, the, MacGruber style, but in her mind, he's just,
Gross.
bam.
Well, she's used this term a couple times where her breasts tighten in her shirt. That has never happened to me. I just don't understand this. It's almost like a men writing women moment where she talks about how her breasts swell and engorge when she started. I'm like, what?
Yours don't do that?
No, they do nothing.
I don't think you've noticed. They must.
No.
Let me see.
Stop it.
Science. Let me science my way through.
But it's
Do you think she's shape-shifting them larger to be like, fuck me? A little bit more? It's like you remember the shoes when we were kids, the pumps?
yes.
It's kind of like
that's
that.
how it's described.
Yeah, but
We
she's just
don't
pumping
work
up. She's just like,
this.
and she's like, oh my God, how big do you need these?
Oh my God.
Just busting out of her shirt. She's like, is this not enough titty for you? Do you know what I'm referencing there a little bit?
That he loves these?
No, it was a gladiator moment. Like, are you not entertained? And she's like, are you not turned on? Just huge tatties.
You have no idea how much I love them.
He's like, oh my God.
The wall's supposed to be temporary. Rhys would take the king on by himself. And that's where I had the bit at the beginning where I said,
Rhys is going to die.
you can kill the king, but it doesn't actually solve the problem.
Well, this is where they're short-sighted, right? Because you don't just kill the king.
No.
You make a statement
Yeah.
when you do it. You could kill the king if you did it the right way and change that whole system.
But that's kind of the point, is it's not just take this person out. Someone else will fill those shoes.
You fill those shoes. I think that's the difference.
And then they talk about, this part kind of irritated me. Feyre says, we were told not to put the books together and because something will show up. And she's like, maybe we can use those monsters as part of, being on our side, right?
Sure.
And I just kind of thought of like, no surprise that Feyre's fuck up is actually going to benefit them in some way. But you also kind of called this, I don't remember if it was the end of the last book or last episode, where you said they're going to be fighting the King of Hybern and then there's going to be some type of team up against whatever is big and bad and coming. In this case, it sounds like it might be leaning in towards the big and bad is going to be on their side for the book, but either way.
Yeah, or whatever comes is like, fuck the King of Hybern, fuck Parenthian, fuck the other places. I'm going to take them all out. And then the King of Hybern has to adjust his plans from global domination to survival.
And that's when we learn about the Bone Carver and Amren.
The Bone Carver is so interesting to me because I remember when we met the Bone Carver, I'm like, oh, what is he exactly?
Yeah, he's something similar to Amren, old, as in before.
He's older than Parenthian.
From another world is what I got from it. Like he's come from another world and he's trapped here just like Amren.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Do you think he and Amren come from a different series? That maybe this is like some crossover character from another, universe that she's written about?
I don't know.
Because they're not, like Amren is brought up as being in a high fae body,
Yeah.
but it's
Due
not
to a
strictly
spell.
high fae. Right. And then who could have put her, you know what I mean, in that spell? I don't know. I have so many questions.
Yeah.
The Bone Carver appearing different to everybody is interesting to me. Everything about the Bone Carver is interesting. As well as Feyre brought up, I don't think it was in these chapters, I think it was in the last chapters, that if Rhys, she had half a mind to go give something to the Weaver and make Rhys fight for it. And Rhys was like, oh, that's a bad idea. How fucking powerful is this Weaver? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If there was a clear power system defined.
Even the Suriel, very, very, very old.
The Suriel is older than the dirt that Corinthian's on.
Which then kind of makes it seem like from another world also.
Yeah, I also think the Suriel's going to come in handy because he seems to be almost summonable, if that makes sense. And he's I wouldn't say omniscient, but he has some clue of omniscience going on. He's going to be super useful in this war. Why the fuck hasn't Feyre offered another cloak or some bullshit to the Suriel? And like, Rhys, this fella here is helpful to me. Because the Suriel's always been kind to her.
Yeah.
And I think the Suriel is intrigued, but I think there's also a point of...
It probably also knows everything that they would want to ask, and therefore it's like, oh yeah, I'll share this info.
Well, yeah, and I think that the way the Suriel disseminates information is obviously normally in riddle, right? He's meant to be kind of confusing. But I do think that he and Feyre have developed, I shouldn't even say he, they and Feyre have developed kind of this relationship, if you will, right? Everybody's like, oh, the Suriel is so scary and hard to capture. It's not hard to capture. She uses a chicken the first time. The maid lady, cat lady, Alice, is like, that's a shitty way to do it. Give him a cloak instead. So then Feyre gives him a cloak the second time. The dude's jovial, right?
Yeah.
Happy-go-lucky. But I wonder if it isn't because there's some similarity between the Suriel being something that doesn't really belong to this world and Feyre also being something that doesn't really fit into this world.
Yeah. And that kind of falls back into, I want to know more about the mom.
Yeah, and the Suriel. I think the mom was a Fae.
But not, ooh. What if she was half Fae, but she looked human? Because we've talked about that.
She could have been glamored. I think the mom was a Fae. I think part of the reason why the dad was so distraught and stuff had something to do with whatever effect she had on the dad. Whether that being overwhelmingly positive effect or whether it was whatever it might have been, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think the dad then just being utterly useless thereafter. I don't know.
Wow.
Don't know, but
that
I stand by
my
it.
notes for this set of chapters. Did you have anything you wanted to bring up?
No, I didn't have any notes and there was so much dialogue. This kind of sucked.
You agree?
Yeah.
I thought you were disagreeing with me earlier. I'm like, this was so boring.
I think it was necessary, but it was boring. I think it could have been done better. I think the idea of it is fine. I also got so bored for a lot of it that I just couldn't. And it wasn't so much that they were talking too much. It's they kept rehashing the same shit.
A lot of repetitive. It was just like, I don't even have examples. Just my perspective was it was very repetitive. That's all I had.
That's it.
Love you.
Love you too.
You're my bestie.
You're mine. It was a great time. We had fun. Now get out and go live your life.
No, wait. No. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate and love you all. Please follow us here, TikTok or Instagram at Shadow Daddies Podcast.
And then go live your life.
Bye.
Bye. Get out. We're done. This was Daggers and Shadow Daddies. Now it's my time. Toodaloo. It was fun for us. I hope it was fun for you. But that's all we've got. Goodbye. Come back in a few days. We love you.